The length of games has witnessed an exponential increase in recent years. We have gone from games that take up an average of 20 to 25 hours to complete to games that eat up weeks, if not months to finish. Everything is bigger, but is it better? Well, that's for another time. Maps, side missions, exploration, leveling up, finishing tasks, and then finally the main story. When all the aforementioned aspects are combined, we come up to numbers that equal 6 to 8 games of past eras, sometimes even more. By the way, do you know how many total hours Assassin's Creed has been played for by all the players in the world? Stick around to find out, because trust me, you will be shocked. Back to Assassin's Creed games now, because Ubisoft has built a gaming franchise juggernaut. We have gone from Assassin's Creed 1, a classic old school action adventure game, to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, a game so vastly dazzling and addictive, and because of its polarizing nature is one of the most talked about and financially successful games in the gaming industry. And as you might have guessed, is also one of the longest. But where do they both lie on the list? Let's find out now, because in this video we talk about how long each Assassin's Creed game takes to finish. Before we start, let me tell you how I'm listing them. We look at how long the main story of the game takes to finish. Ultimately, we'll list it based on the amount of time it takes to finish the game completely. Now, that includes the side missions, exploration, synchronization of viewpoints, and small activities like gathering collectibles, looting chests, to collecting feathers, 100 bloody %. Now that you know, let's freaking go. Number 12, Assassin's Creed Revelations. The last chapter of Ezio's trilogy was handled rather poorly by the developers in my humble opinion. Now, many people love Revelations and think that the game is the best in the trilogy, which I most certainly don't. But we can all agree upon one thing, that the emotional tone of the game is absolutely perfect. But the length, however, is terribly short, with the main story taking just 15 hours to complete and the 100% sync taking 35 hours to crack. The game has the shortest overall length in the entire series. It's a problem I've spoken about in Revelations, What Was Awful video. I really feel the creator should have given the story more time to develop, and the story itself should have had more dimensions. But whatever we got, although short, was bloody satisfying. Next, number 11, Assassin's Creed 1. It's the oldest and also one of the shortest, but do not underestimate the impact the story of Assassin's Creed 1 has had, because it's remembered to this day as the shining example of quality over quantity. But when this list is in question, Assassin's Creed 1 is second from the last for sure. Clocking in at about 17 hours to complete the main story and 35 hours to complete the game 100%, it surely is one that won't take long, but will give you an experience that you'll remember forever. And the main culprit for the short length of the overall game is an almost criminal lack of side missions and activities that really make AC1 a short but incredibly sweet experience. Next, number 10, Assassin's Creed 2. This one is a real stunner. Despite having released over 13 years ago, this game mesmerizes players to this bloody day. And Assassin's Creed 2 was also where the story of Ezio, one of the most beloved and respected characters in the gaming industry, kicked off. And I personally feel that the length of Assassin's Creed 2 was just perfect. At no point in the game do you feel like there's a wasted motion. Even something as simple as collecting feathers will make you remember Ezio's younger brother Petruchio and makes you feel like it's worth it. And despite being old, the game is pretty lengthy, with taking 22 hours for the main story and about 38 hours for the completionist. It's neither too short nor too long. And Assassin's Creed 2 will forever be more than just a game to me. It's a journey, one that I'll never ever forget. Next, number 9, Assassin's Creed Rogue. The story of the assassin turned Templar Shay Patrick Cormac is one that has a fan base separate from the Assassin's Creed franchise. Many people look at this anti-hero as the best, the most intriguing character the series has ever produced. But the unfortunate thing is the developers did not treat the game with the same respect. I wonder to this day if it was recklessness or just plain simple stupidity by Ubisoft, because they did not realize they had 24-karat gold in their hands. But what a shame it was to see a game with this high of a concept to be handled as poorly as the developers did. Despite releasing really late and having a plot worthy of Game of the Year, main story only takes a disgustingly short 12 hours to finish, and it takes 42 hours to crack the game fully. Talk about missed opportunities. Next, number 8, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. A game that gets as close to perfection as one can. There are very few things wrong with Brotherhood, and even the things that aren't perfect are most certainly not horrible. That means the length as well. I feel Brotherhood hit the sweet spot in not just the length, but the balance between the main story and side activities as well. We can all agree that 99.9% of the times the main storyline is the focal point of interest, and if the side missions or extra activities are 5 times as much as the main story, it loses value terribly. But with the main story taking about 20 hours to complete and it taking about 45 hours for 100% sync, Brotherhood once again proves why it's the GOAT. Next, number 7, Assassin's Creed Syndicate. As you all know, I'm not a fan of Syndicate by any stretch of the imagination, but when you talk about having a great time, Syndicate is just it. There are so many things to do. It not only keeps the players interested, but also makes a man want to go back and play the damn game again. And when we talk length, Syndicate actually has one of the more fitting ones. The main story clocking in at 21 hours, 58 hours for the players to finish the game 100%. I really like my games to have a reasonable length. Not to mention, the game is pretty fast paced as well. And at no point will you feel there's a dull or boring moment, even if it's something incredibly stupid.
Mr. Starrick, I told you not to disturb me!
It'll keep you entertained at the very least. And as I've said before, Syndicate is comparable to a summer popcorn blockbuster. Mindless, fast-paced and bloody good entertainment. Next, number 6, Assassin's Creed 3. This game was way ahead of its time. A most beautiful experience, something that brings out fond memories of the good old days. The game has a lot to offer to the players. An incredible setting, some genuinely fun and relevant side missions, a darn good naval system, and probably the best story in the entirety of Assassin's Creed. Now, why do I say that, you might ask? But I feel that this was the only game where the story and the time period were used to their fullest potential. Connor story seamlessly intertwined with the American Revolution. The end result was something that was almost perfect. AC3 has a main storyline that's about 20 hours long, but finishing the side missions and all the activities will take a person about 60 hours of gameplay to complete. But those 60 hours will most definitely teach you more about the American Revolution than a history book ever could. Minus the Assassins and Templars, of course. Next, number 5, Assassin's Creed Black Flag. This game really gives you the full pirate experience without you actually having to be one. When atop the jackdaw, riding the swift winds of the Caribbean, listening to your crew sing those shanties, man, you really feel like you're in a different world. And even though the main story of Black Flag is a terrific one, it's the side activities and the missions that are the highlight of the game. Raiding all those bloody big ships, going for a dive to extract lost gold, finding maps that point out buried treasure, and my personal favorite, the big 4 legendary ships. I could play this game over and over again and not get bored because nothing feels repetitive. How the creators pulled it off, I just don't know. But they did, and did so in stunning fashion. And now, talking about the length of the game, the main story takes you about 25 hours to complete. But if you want to rip open the Caribbean entirely, it would take you about 65 solid ass hours to do so. And to be honest, I could keep raiding ships for 100 hours and still not get bored. Next, number 4, Assassin's Creed Unity. Surprisingly, Unity is this high on the list. But if you've played the game, you know how addictive it can be. Keep everything else aside, even if you're just free running through Paris for hours, it still won't get boring in the least. And despite having a map much smaller than its 2 predecessors, Unity has made a city that's densely packed with opportunity, incredibly populated, and has the perfect setting to make a man feel home. Because after a few hours into the game, you will start remembering the map. And by the time 20 or so hours have passed, you'll know most of the streets, turns, and escape opportunities as if you've lived in the place for years. And despite the main storyline taking 19 or so hours to complete, Unity needs about 85 hours of gameplay to reach 100% sync. And make no mistake about it, the side missions are pretty good in their own right. So many places to buy. Then there's the cafe theater missions, the Nostradamus enigmas, murder mysteries, and a lot more. This game will keep you hooked. Next, number 3, Assassin's Creed Origins. Now we enter a different territory, because since the implementation of the RPG era, Assassin's Creed has been bigger than ever. And Origins is just not big, it's fucking huge. And it's not just the map I'm talking about, it's the entire bloody game. There is a grand feel to the whole thing, something I only felt in Odyssey after this. And despite many of the underutilized aspects of ancient Egypt, the game still delivered. You know, Origins is one of those games where I could just explore the beauty of Ptolemaic Egypt for hours and still not get bored. Stunning landscapes, the terrorizingly beautiful oceans of sand, and the oasis, who can forget those? And it's not just these, there's a ton of side activities to do. First, the side missions. They contain so many stories that bring out Pike's magnetic personality even more. Just capturing forts, killing wild beasts. My favorite, the Stone Circle missions. Not only do they take you to incredibly beautiful locations, they also tell you the heart-touching story about the relationship the father and son shared. And there's plenty more. The main story is about 32 hours long, mainly because you have to level up to complete many missions. But if you want to experience every last bit of Origins and finish the thing 100%, it'll take you 88 hours. hours. And mark my words, those 88 hours will also be synonymous with time well spent. Next, number 2, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Odyssey, in my humble opinion, is the grandest game in the Assassin's Creed series. There is just so much content, it's mind-blowing. Where do I even start? First, of course, there's the story. And despite what you may think about it as part of Assassin's Creed and the incredibly dull ending, this story is interesting to say the least. But now we get to the good stuff, the vast wealth of side activities this game has to offer. I myself spent over 60 hours twice in Odyssey and still could not even crack 70% of the game because it's just that big. There are hundreds if not thousands of locations to complete, treasures to find, Cult of Cosmos members to kill, overthrowing either Spartans or Athens to give the other an advantage, and on rewards and XP at the same time. Killing mercenaries, slaying legendary animals, fighting mythological beings, bringing down forts, going to war in the arena, and if nothing else, just enjoying the captivating view of Greece. The plot itself requires a gameplay time of 45 hours to complete, but if you want to finish Odyssey 100%, please keep 145 hours aside, because it'll take nothing less to do so. And even though some might argue that it's too much gameplay time for any game to have, I'd say Odyssey is an exception, probably the only one in the series. And now, number 1, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Now that the exception has been spoken about, let's talk about the game that I felt is too bloody long. Valhalla is just so taxing in a weird way, I can't explain it why, but it just is. The main story takes 65 hours to complete. Can you imagine that? 65 hours. And at a point of time, it feels too much to handle. You know, most of the times when games go on for that long, it just becomes a chore. Something you're just doing to get to the end and just finish the damn thing. The biggest problem I feel with Valhalla is that the world is not nearly as exciting as Odyssey's. The view isn't as pleasing, the exploration just felt repetitive and boring. The opportunities in the world of Valhalla are just few and far between. And most importantly, the timeline it's set in was just not the most interesting one in history. If I could physically go back to either ancient Greece or 7th century Britain, I would most certainly choose the former. Most people would too. Well, probably. And the biggest pain in the ass is if you want to complete Valhalla 100%, it takes 150 hours of gameplay time. 150! And no disrespect to the fans of Valhalla, but I just don't feel that the game is worth that kind of time. And now it's time to answer the question. The franchise has sold in excess of 165 million copies altogether. So even if you take an average of 25 hours of gameplay time per game, Assassin's Creed has been played for over 4.1 billion hours, which equals to 171 million plus days and 470,000 years. But that long ago, the ancestors of our species, Homo boraensis, still roaming the earth. And with that, we reach the end, guys. Tell me down in the comment section below which game you think had the perfect length. Also tell me which Assassin's Creed game is your favorite. And if you like the video, hit the like button and don't forget to pierce your hidden blade through the subscribe button. That's it for today, guys. Stay safe, stay strong, and stay tuned. It's your boy VCX signing out.